So the first thing that we're going to try to do is we're going to try to take this object, this little block of Nora's, and create it using Onshape. To think about how we might go about doing that, think about those 5 views that I just showed you in the orthographic video. And you want to try to find the simplest view that's going to enable you to use the features within Onshape to generate this in 3 dimensions. So I'm going to focus on this 3-dimensional or this 2-dimensional profile of this little staircase shape. And I'm going to try to make this using Onshape so that then I can use it to extend in 3 dimensions to turn into a 3-dimensional object. Let's take a look at how we do that. This is the Onshape dashboard, and you can see that I've taken a picture of the block along with making a line drawing of the profile of it, which I'm going to use in Onshape to actually build this object. And so this is the main view in Onshape. We're going to go to the front view, because remember, that's where we are going to be thinking about our orthographic views of the object, always starting with the front view. We're going to make a sketch of what our block looks like from the front. Before we get started actually drawing it though, let's set some of our document settings. And the big thing that we want to do is go to our workspace units and make our units in terms of centimeters. Everything else looks pretty good. Okay, so we are in the front view. Let's create a new sketch. We're going to select the front plane as what we're going to do our sketch on. And now we're going to use these tools to make the profile of the block. Now you'll notice that I did a pretty rough sketch of all of this. These are not perpendicular, everything is not perfect. That's because I can use the dimensions tool to make all of these exact. So getting it close is something you can do to just get the shape right, and then you can make it precise using the dimensions tool. Let me show you how that works. Now, in reality, this is not how an engineer would present this. There are all sorts of reasons why this is not great, but for our purposes right now, this is good enough for making sure that this shape accurately represents the block that I'm trying to model using Onshape. So let's now finish our sketch, and what we want to now do is turn this into a 3D object. We're going to do this using a special feature in Onshape known as Extrude. And so to give you an idea of what this is, I'm going to get a slightly different view of this object. We're going to rotate in 3 dimensions. I'm going to hit the extrude feature and I'm going to select this, and you'll see that now what this is doing is creating a 3D object, and I can kind of decide on what thickness I want to pull this out into in 3 dimensions. I can set that to be whatever I want it to be, and I want this to actually be 3 centimeters. So I can go here and put 3 centimeters as the exact width and hit the check mark. And so now I have this 3-dimensional object, which is similar to my real object that I started with. Let's now look at each of those views. So if I click on front, here's my front view. I can move down to the bottom. I can move over to the left, and then I can also move over to the right. And so you can imagine that now with each of these views, I could create an orthographic view that takes one of each of these views and puts them together to give a clear message of what this object actually is. Okay, so I want to show you one other feature here, and that is that the reality of my object is that it's not actually a perfect right angle here, it's actually rounded. And so the way we can actually represent a rounded edge like this in our sketch is using something called a fillet. So if I go back to my sketch, this one that was definitely overdimensioned here, I can go up here to the fillet tool, and I can select 2 parts of my sketch which I now want to give a rounded edge. Now you can see I get this R0.5. What that's doing is that's going to create a circular curve that goes between those two surfaces, and this is the radius. So the radius of that curve is going to be 0.5. I can select that, and I can double click, and I could edit that if I wanted to change that to be either a sharper corner, that's 0.1 centimeters, and you can see that's very small, or I could make it 0.5, which makes it a nice smooth part, just like that. I'm going to add another fillet down here, and then we're going to see what that does to the 3D object. All right, so that'll do it. Let's select that we're okay with our sketch, and let's see what happens when we move this around. So you can see now that this has a smooth, rounded edge up there, and we can actually take a look at all of the different views to get an idea of what this now looks like from a few different perspectives. Okay, so last little lesson for you. I want to show you how you can actually make a hole through a three-dimensional object. So let's say that I wanted to make a 1 centimeter radius hole somewhere on this side of my object. That wasn't in my original block, but let's just say I wanted to know how to do that. I'm going to make a new sketch, and I'm going to draw the sketch on the front face of the object that I've made already. So I've just selected the face of my extrusion as what I'm going to be drawing that on. All right, so let's draw that circle. So I'm going to go up here to the circle tool. I'm going to click somewhere around here, and I can see I kind of drag this out into a full circle. Now this is not necessarily the size that I want to be using here. So now that I have this, I'm going to go to the dimension tool. I'm going to click on my circle, and I'm going to set it to be the exact diameter that I want it to have. So the radius of this to be exactly 1.0 centimeters. And now I have it. So I select that I'm okay with that sketch. And now to make it into a hole, I'm going to again use my extrude tool. So I'll select that. But I'm also going to move over into this other view so that I can get a view of actually creating this hole. So I'm going to select the circle, and I'm going to actually drag it backwards through the object. Let's just see what happens when I select that. Now you'll see now, because I actually extended it beyond the shape, it actually drew it out into a cylindrical part. Well, that's not what I want. So instead, I'm going to go up here to remove. You can see now if I do that, I have a hole. I hit the check mark, and now you can see that I have a hole that goes straight through my object. All right. So that is how I can use Onshape to create something in 3D, knowing something about the different views of what this looks like.